Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Talk and Stalk, this part being the Geeks Gambit. I'm joined today by my fellow friend and film buff, Joseph.
Hey.
Glad to have you here, man. Obviously, it's been quite some time since we've done this. I think it's been around about a couple of months. Obviously, I've not had access to a laptop. Obviously, I'm in a different venue now as well. So, it's not going to... I haven't got a microphone either. So I'm kind of like just having to make do with earphones. So it probably doesn't even sound as clear as last time. But you've got to make do with what you've got at the end of the day. So what we're going to do today is basically, now this is actually an episode that was scheduled for about a month and a half or so ago, our top 10 Batman villains.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we're both huge Batman fans, and I think we'd probably agree by saying this, is that I don't think there's any character in all of DC or Marvel that has a better rogues gallery than Batman.
Nah, I would agree.
He has so many iconic rogues, and even some of the lesser known rogues, even some of the lesser known villains. There's some great villains out there that really don't get much of the limelight. Coming from Marvel, Spider-Man obviously has a lot of great villains. I think Spider-Man is hands down has the greatest amount of rogues for all the Marvel characters. But Batman's rogues, just a great selection and quite a wide variety as well. So we're just going to talk about our top 10 Batman villains. Now, obviously, I know there's probably a few honorable mentions. Obviously, these are all our personal opinions, so we don't want anyone rioting. I don't want to receive any hate emails or anything like that, or any death threats. We're going to get the ball rolling in that. So what's your honorable mentions, man?
So for my honorable mentions, first one is Deathstroke.
Okay.
Again, it was hard because just trying to choose a top 10 was unbelievably difficult to try and pinpoint. But I recently have got into Deathstroke more, obviously, because with Arrow and stuff, and obviously he has, as you said, to me, they jump across, from Arrow to Batman and stuff, so Deathstroke was one. Harley Quinn. People are probably like, why have you not put her in, But again, there's just so many villains. Plus Harley's in the limelight at the minute because she's in like everything.
Yeah, there's definitely a saturation of Harley Quinn with the animated show, and obviously the likes of the Birds of Prey film and Suicide Squad, The Suicide Squad, and you've got some more, haven't you?
I do. Bane. Now Bane was a tricky one because he was originally going to go into the top 10, but again, it was hard, and I felt like there was a couple more that I like just a little bit more than Bane. I still love Bane,
Yeah.
Of Poison Ivy. And some good old-fashioned Gotham gangster mafia types, Carmine Falcone.
Okay.
And Marona. Because I do like the gangster elements as well,
That's kind of like when Batman's world was a little more grounded. And that, if you will, at times before he was taking on the likes of, Two-Face and the Joker and the Riddler, it was the mob bosses and that. And obviously, Carmine Falcone was obviously played by Tom Wilkinson in Batman Begins, and we've obviously got him played by John Turturro, haven't we? And
yes, we do. Which I
haven't actually revealed him yet, have they? Maybe we'll get a glimpse of him in the new trailer coming out soon. I don't believe we've seen him. I don't believe we've seen Falcone yet.
They did release. Do you remember when they were filming in Liverpool?
Okay.
And remember it was a funeral scene.
Okay.
And Robert was there with Zoe and stuff. John was there actually. And he actually, if you go back, I'll send you some photos, but he actually does look really good.
I didn't notice
Falcone.
him. Yeah.
Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah.
The Court of Owls.
Yeah. I mean, I think
love.
Well, the Court of Owls, I think,
is like one of the best. Society.
Yeah, it's one of the best storylines in years. Courtesy of Scott Snyder in 2011. I just thought that was a fantastic storyline. Because
I've literally a couple more. I've got Calendar Man. Obviously, he's became kind of a little bit popular now with the Long Halloween.
Julian Day.
Professor Pig. Just I like him because of the horror elements. A lot of these I can link the horror. Darkseid, obviously, again, he can jump across from Batman, Justice League, And the last honorable mention was Firefly, because I just think he or she, which version that you go for, it's just a great, great, great character. I like it.
Garth Lynn's, isn't it? His name, Firefly. Yeah, again, kind of like a Batman villain that doesn't really get utilized too much. Obviously, he was a side mission in Arkham Knight. Of course, he was actually one of the best boss fights in the entire Arkham franchise in Arkham Origins. I thought that was a really good boss fight, actually. Well, you gave us about 9 million honorable mentions there. That was actually more than I expected. A lot of them that you said I would agree with. Yeah, Bane's a great villain, and I think Bane is a character actually that people underestimate just how smart he is.
Yeah,
Bane is not just this big brute that's all about physical strength. He's actually highly intelligent as well. He's a guy that can really think a few moves ahead. And one of the other characters you mentioned, Deathstroke. Now, Deathstroke, again, the only reason, spoiler alert, Deathstroke isn't in my top 10. The reason being, I've never actually seen Deathstroke as a Batman villain per se. Now, I understand that them two have clashed many times. They've had many encounters with each other. I know, technically speaking, he's more of a Titans villain than he is Batman. Yeah. And I think that's the only thing that's kind of stopped me from putting him in the top 10. Deathstroke is a great character, and one of the few characters that can truly go toe-to-toe with Batman.
Yeah.
Highly intelligent. He's one of DC's biggest badasses, let's face it.
He is.
And it's kind of a shame. As excited as I am for 2022's The Batman, there is a part of me that still thinks, damn, what if we got that Batfleck and Deathstroke film?
Would have been amazing.
The potential there, because let's face it, Batfleck deserved his own Batman film. He should have had his own solo Batman movie.
Absolutely.
And I'm trying to think of honorable mentions for me. I like the Black Mask as well, Roman Sionis. Again, a villain that doesn't really get utilized too much. Even in the Arkham Origins, in which he was the big villain, it turned out to be the Joker. In a big twist, it was the Joker. What other villains? I quite like the Mad Hatter. Not in my top 10, but I think he's a villain that deserves a mention.
Yeah, it was a fun film. Yeah.
Professor Pig, obviously a darker villain as well as serial killer. Quite a late addition, because I believe he started off as kind of a villain for Nightwing.
Yeah.
It was under the I can't remember what comic run it was now, but that was Professor Pig's comic debut. Trying to think of some other Court of Owls, as you said, fantastic. But there are so many. There are just so many goddamn villains. So, but yeah, we're gonna start off the list now. So, in the 10th spot for you, man, what would it be?
It would be Man-Bat.
Kirk Langstrom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is one that really goes back to, for me personally, the animated series, which is where I first discovered Man-Bat.
On Leather Wings.
On Leather Wings.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was one that when I was a kid, I would used to go, oh, that's the scary Batman. Yeah. When you didn't realize, you're like, oh. But, as I grew older and out there, and again, it's a villain that I think gets really kind of lost and everything, I would still love them to do a live action Man-Bat. I think that would be amazing to do. But then when I got older, I started to think of like the horror elements. I could bring my horror side and and stuff. And just like I've read so many comics with Man-Bat in them and stuff, and I've seen some like concept art of different versions of Man-Bat.
Yeah.
And some of them are just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Obviously you couldn't do it for the animated series because it would scare the kids. But if they were ever to do an actual movie with Man-Bat, some of these designs would be absolutely pitch perfect, but probably would end up being R-rated.
Yeah,
most likely.
It's a character that does have a very horror aesthetic. It's very Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde-esque.
Exactly.
That's a really good, actually, because that was the very first episode I think that actually aired. Well, it's the first episode on the Blu-ray collection at least, and it's a really good start to the series. It's actually a very good start. It's a really good episode. But yeah, you're right. Man-Bat is a character that really doesn't get talked about that much. It's a villain that doesn't. But no, I do like Man-Bat. There were 2 episodes, weren't there? Because I believe it
part
was
one,
his
part
wife,
two.
wasn't it? Wasn't his wife? Didn't she become a Man-Bat? Well,
she did.
Female bat or whatever.
Female bat, yeah.
Yeah.
That was cool. I like
that. Okay, yeah. So Man-Bat, yeah, not in my top 10, but yeah, that was certainly an honourable mention, I'd say, for me. So intense spot for me. Now, I'm not going to claim that I've read a huge amount of comics regarding this character because there are multiple iterations of this character, and that's Clayface.
Okay.
There are different villains that have been Clayface. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm a complete expert on the character. I can go by the comics I've read and the animated series. Now, obviously, we had the likes of Basil Carlo, that was a Clayface, who I believe was the actor.
Yeah.
And obviously in Arkham City, great boss fight, actually. Great twist at the end, actually, where it turns out that the Joker is actually Clayface. What I love about Clayface, he's one of them few characters, one of them few villains that Batman has that actually has kind of, in a way, superhuman super powers that he can essentially, he can shapeshift, he can transform his body into any form that he wants. And I really love that aspect. But not only that, he's not just some kind of, how do I put it, black and white kind of character. He's a villain with a sympathetic side as well. Going by the iteration I know, you kind of like, he's become a freak of nature and he ends up turning into a life of crime, much like another character we didn't mention, Killer Croc, Waylon Jones. Seen as a freak, you know, turned to a life of isolation and some angst against the world. And I really like that aspect of Clayface, that he is a villain, but at the same time, you can actually sympathize with him.
Yeah.
I just love the whole shape-shifting ability as well, because as I say, let's face it, Batman doesn't have many villains, does he? That actually have genuinely superpower abilities.
No.
There's not a huge amount. Most of his villains tend to be more grounded.
Yeah.
So yeah, Clayface, as I say, good boss fight in Arkham City. I loved the 2-part episode in the animated series, Feet of Clay.
So good.
Great 2-parter. And again, I think with the right comic arc, I love how he's drawn sometimes.
Yeah.
Clayface.
Yeah.
And if executed correctly, he's a villain I'd love to see on the big screen.
Be amazing. Yeah.
So yeah, what's 9th spot for you?
Okay, now this is a very, very unusual one, and again, for me, it goes back to the animated series, The Ventriloquist.
Arnold Wesker.
That's him, Arnold. I just remember, again, seeing that episode that he was in as a kid. I forget the name of the episode that he was in, but it always stood out to me that, you know, this guy with his little Scarface-esque dummy, you know, and to me, it was just such a striking image and just so different for a villain, you know, it's just like, jeez. And then obviously, again, I grew older, and then whenever I would see that episode, or if he was mentioned in anything, you know, it would be like, this character is so underused. I mean, really underused, you know. And at one point, I got chatting this was ages ago, I got chatting to another friend of mine about potential Batman villains, you know, being used big screen. And I said to him, about the ventriloquist, he says, "Oh, Joe, that would be amazing." And I said, he wouldn't even necessarily have to be a main villain. If you had a really strong sideline, or even as an opening teaser, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
If it was done really, really well and really creepy. Yeah. I think it would really work very, very well. But again, you know, I think that, you know, the powers to be at Warner's would be like, nobody knows him. Unless you're a Batman fan, you know.
Yeah, I know that I dropped off the show. I completely and utterly lost interest in the show, but I do know that he was in Gotham.
Yes,
they made a show. Now, I don't know how well executed it was, because Gotham is a show that lost me. I'd lost interest by the end of the 2nd season, so I don't know how well executed it was. But I'm with you. Now, again, this kind of veers into horror. One thing that I've actually always found quite disturbing and actually quite intriguing in horror, and that is the idea of multiple personality disorder.
Yeah.
somebody being controlled by another personality. You could look at 1978's Magic with Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
And ventriloquist, there's a very similar component there, practically almost identical. And yeah, I do love that aspect, actually. He's being controlled. He's this mild-mannered doofus or whatever. I'm trying to think of a better term, that's being controlled by a puppet.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
You know, and no, it is a very, it's a very interesting psychological component. So I fully agree with you on that. Again, an honourable mention, certainly, without a doubt. And if executed correctly, I agree. That could really work. But it's like you said, the powers that be, I just don't think it's a villain that's going to appear on the big screen anytime soon.
Yeah.
You know, they seem to be more focused on the villains that most people know already. You know, but yeah, so now... sorry, what number am I on? 9 now, isn't it?
Number 9.
Losing track. I've not added any alcohol, seriously. Honestly. 9th place for me is actually one of your honourable mentions. But you only just kind of got in. Poison Ivy.
Nice.
I'll admit, from a male standpoint, what I like about Poison Ivy is sexuality as her weapon.
Yeah.
I love the fact that, again, one of the few villains that actually has kind of a power because she actually has an affinity with plants. But I love the fact that she can make almost any man bend to her will. I love that fact. Of all of the characters in Batman's world, she's the character that just kind of oozes sexuality, even more than another character that we're probably going to come to later on in this list. I've always liked that about Poison Ivy. I love the fact that she's not necessarily a fighter per se. Obviously, she uses plants as weapons and all that. But I love the fact that, she uses and utilizes her sexuality to kind of maximum effect. Obviously, we're not going to talk about the Uma Thurman version. And we're not going to talk about, I know I shouldn't swear on my own fucking channel, should I? Sorry. I know she was in Gotham. I think they had like 3 actresses. There were 3 actresses at one point actually playing Poison Ivy. I'm not quite sure how that worked.
It was weird.
She started off as a little girl, and then I saw snippets from the 3rd season, and she's an older woman. I'm not quite sure how she aged so rapidly or whatever. But no, Poison Ivy, I always found to be, quite an interesting character. I think, like I said, she's one of them characters that I just love the fact that, come on, as a male, come on, we're not going to go too off topic here, but Poison Ivy is the kind of woman that you'd, we'll leave it at that. This isn't turning into an X-rated episode, all right?
No, so we'll keep it PG. Yeah,
we'll keep it PG. What's who's 8th spot for you then?
My 8th spot is our very own Mr. Victor Zsasz.
Okay, another kind of thinking out the box here, aren't you? Because again, not a villain that would come to a lot of people's mind initially.
Yeah. Again, now this is one obviously from reading the comics. Victor would pop up here and there, and then I actually like their version of him in Gotham.
Okay.
I forget the actor's name, Anthony something, but I thought he done him very, very well. I did. I have to admit. I thought
he starts off as kind of like a hitman and enforcer, doesn't he? Working for Carmine Falcone. Yeah,
he does. And again, I can bring my horror element in. Like the thing of the scarification on his body. And just I love that idea of when you try to get into the mind of a serial killer and you think, well, what's the trope? And this guy just marks his body of how many people that he's killed. And that to me is absolutely brilliant. It's so bone chilling.
Yeah. I don't want to go off topic or anything, but as you probably know, there's probably a lot of people listening to this actually watching know that I'm a huge true crime buff.
Yeah.
I'm really serial killers and that. And Victor Zsasz may actually be the most realistic villain that Batman has.
Yeah.
Because serial killers, typically, most serial killers keep trophies. They keep souvenirs of their victims, whatever it is. Car, keys, photograph, whatever. And the fact of him making scars each representing a victim on his body, is so grounded in reality, and that's what makes it so scary.
Exactly.
Victor Zsasz is very much grounded. He could be someone in the real world. You know, that there's people out there like that. Obviously, he appeared in a couple of the Arkham games as well, didn't he, as side missions?
He did. He's the type of villain that when I see him, either watch him or read about him and stuff, I always get a David Fincher feel. Okay. If David Fincher could ever make a Batman movie, you know, and include, you know, Victor Zsasz in it, I think it would be amazing. Because you just get that kind of John Doe kind of way out there vibe, you know. Yeah,
he's just a cold-hearted psychopath, isn't he?
Yeah,
and
in a nutshell.
But no, it's good. Good thing. Definitely thinking out the box here, man. With your first 3 villains, actually. So so the next one on the list for me now is a villain. I believe of all the villains that we've got on our list, because obviously I know your list in advance, but of all the villains, this is the newest villain, because this guy didn't come around until the 2000s, and that's Hush, Thomas Elliot.
Thomas Elliot, yeah.
What I love about Hush is the fact that he was basically Bruce Wayne's childhood friend, and he has this obsession with basically taking over. He feels deprived of his life, and he feels that he wants Bruce Wayne's life.
Yeah.
And obviously Hush, you know, the graphic novel's fantastic, you know, great artwork, Jim Lee and that. But I just love the look of Hush, the bandaged face, the trench coat, and the fact that he's always one step ahead in that storyline of Hush. That he actually engineers this huge elaborate plan and actually utilizes many of Batman's villains to try and enact his plan.
Yeah.
And you know, it's really dark actually, because obviously he tried to kill his own parents. And his mother was survived by Thomas Wayne. And there's resentment there, obviously, because Thomas Wayne, Bruce's father, deprived him of the fortune he felt he earned and deserved. And that's where the whole hatred and resentment from the Wayne family comes from, because he tried killing his mother, and Thomas Wayne actually had her survive. And he even has surgery, doesn't he? He has surgery to look like Bruce Wayne. He's completely obsessed with taking over his life. And I just love the fact that they've got this childhood connection. They were the best of friends, and he knows Bruce Wayne really well. And I just love how, as I said, he's not a villain that really pops up much, really.
No.
They don't really use him too much. I mean, he was in a couple of side missions in the Arkham franchise.
He was.
The first one in Arkham City was actually quite good. It was the identity thief.
Yeah.
But then it was a very disappointing climax, because you don't actually fight him. You just kind of like encounter him and he gets away. And then I thought the one in Arkham Knight was really poor.
Yes.
Where you literally, he comes in disguised as Bruce Wayne and you take him out with literally one punch. To me, Hush is a villain that shouldn't just be relegated as a side mission. He's a villain that is, I feel, can carry his own story.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, but
absolutely.
Yeah, so for me, Hush, because I absolutely love, like, he's clearly very intelligent. He's actually a surgeon himself as well, isn't he?
He is.
I hated the fact, spoiler alert, I hate the fact that they butchered his identity in the 2019 animated film Hush.
Yeah.
For the sake of a plot twist. Don't get me wrong, I thought the film was good. It should have been better than good, though. It was kind of a missed opportunity, if you will, but that they changed his identity for that animated film.
Yeah. I agree.
But so who's the next one on your list?
The next one is good old Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face.
Okay.
Now growing up, obviously I had seen him in the animated series and thought he was great. Then growing up, it was always at that young age great to see Tommy Lee Jones play him. And now, so many years, 20 odd years later, I look back and go, what was I thinking? Joker knockoff. But it was just, again, I just love the fact that I loved Arne Cart's portrayal of him in Dark Knight. Now, I know a lot of people think that was shoehorned in. I can kind of see why, but I would disagree because it served the purpose of the story. You know, the Joker could turn someone bad, you know. But he's just a character that, again, there's been so many iterations of him, you know, in the comics and stuff. But for me, the best one, again, goes back to the animated series. You know, when he's trying to do his
the
best.
two-parter. The two-parter is
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even the way it's done in animation, when his girlfriend comes in, with the lightning and stuff, and you see his face.
Oh yeah, it's really well done.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
You know, and I like the idea, you know, it's just because, you know, if you see any of the guys, you know, the comic book artists talk about all these villains, you know, and they're kind of like their mirror images of Batman to some degree, you know. Obviously they took their own end of things, you know, but I just love the idea of Harvey Dent that, you know, he relies on the coin, you know, and to me, there is still good in him, but it just can't get out because as much as he wants to try, the darker side comes over and goes, no.
Yeah.
You tried this and it never worked. It failed you, you know, so this is the way to go, you know, and again, tragic character. You know.
Definitely. Well, just to let you know that Two-Face is 3rd place on my list.
Oh, okay.
So I thought we may as well, once we get onto a character that we've both got on our list, both talk about it.
Yeah.
I think from a psychological standpoint, you know, Two-Face is certainly, without a doubt, one of Batman's most interesting villains. I love the fact that obviously there is a connection with Bruce Wayne. They were friends. They were allies. Exactly. Bruce actually sees, you know, Harvey as one of his big failures.
Yeah.
You know, letting him become Two-Face, and he's always that's always haunted him. And I love the idea of, like you say, with the coin, the duality. This is a man that was a shining star in Gotham, a man that's fallen from grace. You know, he was a hero. He was every bit the hero that Bruce was, you know, that Batman was, just obviously in a different way. Two-Face, the two-part you're on about. Tommy Lee Jones's iteration. I mean, at the end of the day, it's clearly, you know, Joel Schumacher was taking Batman kind of back to the 60s. You know, Jim Carrey. Actually, we'll get onto that later. But spoiler alert. Tommy Lee Jones's Two-Face. He is kind of like the Joker. He's comedic, and I've always looked at Two-Face as not a villain like that.
No,
he's not a character that should be joking about or anything like that. But it was the tone of the movie they were going for, and that, you know. So no, I think Two-Face is a really interesting villain. I think Aaron Eckhart did a great job. It is a shame. I do feel like I understand why it was done for narrative purposes and whatever. I do think it's a real shame that Two-Face died at the end of The Dark Knight. I have to admit, he's a villain that I would have liked to have, you know, maybe seen in the third and final part of the trilogy or whatever. I'm really hoping, because obviously with 2022's The Batman, obviously it's planned to be a trilogy, and I am hoping that Harvey Dent Two-Face becomes part of that trilogy. Because interestingly as well, he's another villain. Now, William Shatner voiced Harvey Dent in the Batman and Two-Face, and that was great.
It was very
great. William Shatner and Adam West side by side in this animated film, because it was the last thing that Adam West ever did, wasn't it?
Yeah. Bless him. Yeah.
Because Two-Face, interestingly, because it was very much in the spirit of the 60s Batman, but Two-Face is a villain that was never in the 60s TV Batman series.
No.
So it was like created specifically for this animated film, and I think it really worked.
It did.
I really liked it. So I love Two-Face. Everything from the duality, the characteristics, the look of the character as well. But yeah, 3rd place for me. So, all right, we'll have to go on to my next one, which is, I believe this was an honorable mention for you, Ra's al Ghul.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, the head of the League of Shadows. League of Shadows, isn't it? Played by Liam Neeson, of course, in Batman Begins. What I love about this guy is that he's a villain, but a villain with honor. This is a villain that, unlike a certain other villain, this isn't a guy that's about chaos or anything like that. His crimes are committed for the greater good, if you will. There's a big plan with every crime that is committed. And of course, he can kick ass as well. He's a very skilled swordsman. He's a very skilled martial artist. Obviously, him and Batman have faced. I don't think he come around until the 70s, did he? Kind of a later villain.
I believe it was about the 70s. Yeah.
So Ra's al Ghul, I love the fact that he has respect for Batman.
Yeah.
Actually, now here's a quick question for you. You'll know this. Whenever he refers to Batman and he talks to him, do you remember what he calls him?
Oh.
He doesn't call him Batman. He often refers to him as something else.
Oh, you threw me on the spot.
So there's no gold star for getting it right. I hate to disappoint.
I've gone blank.
He actually refers to him as the detective.
The detective.
He often calls him the detective, and that shows respect.
It does.
And obviously, it was a kind of a twist, wasn't it, in Batman Begins, that Liam Neeson was actually Ra's al Ghul. The Lazarus Pit, which obviously kind of like utilizes kind of an almost supernatural aspect in Batman as well, because it can actually, well, as you know, through the Under the Red Hood storyline, it can actually revive the dead. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Ra's al Ghul is 500 years old.
Yeah.
If I remember rightly as well.
Yeah, I think he is 500,
Longevity through using the Lazarus Pit.
Yeah. And again, he's an Arrow villain. They brought him in the Arrow.
Oh, third season, wasn't it?
Third season, yeah.
Again, I will admit, I thought the first 2 seasons were great. For no specific reason, I just kind of dropped off going into the third season. So I know there's 8 seasons, isn't there? And it's finished now.
Yeah.
So no, I never actually got as far as Ra's al Ghul.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, I thought he was really good on it. Yeah.
But I like the fact, again, he's one of them few villains that can actually kind of go toe to toe with Batman. He can actually give Batman an actual fight.
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously his daughter, Talia, gave birth to Damian Wayne. We're not going to hold that against her, though. I've come to like Damian Wayne a lot more over the years. I'll be honest, I did not like his character initially. It took me a little time to warm to him. I don't know what your thoughts on Damian Wayne are.
I mean, when he was introduced, I was just like, okay, fair enough. And then, like over the years, like a fine Wayne, they did give him some interesting storylines, and it was kind of like, right, okay, there's more to this guy than meets the eye,
Yeah.
So,
he's an obnoxious little brat, but that's his character. That's his character. I mean, love him or hate him or whatever, he's certainly got character there, but he is an obnoxious little brat. I still can't forgive them, actually, for Son of Batman. Him. Now, Baron, I understand he was trained by Ra's al Ghul. I get that. He's highly skilled, highly trained, but he weighs about 60 pounds. And he takes on Deathstroke and beats Deathstroke. I'm sorry. I don't care if you're trained by Ra's al Ghul and you're like, how old is it? Is he like 12 years old?
He's like 12, yeah.
Like, come on. Deathstroke's been fighting and killing people for years. I could never quite buy into that. But no, I think Ra's al Ghul is, again, even though I personally consider him kind of a top tier villain, but he doesn't seem to really get, I don't know, he doesn't really seem to get mentioned that much.
No.
And I think it's highly unlikely that he'll end up becoming part of the new Batman trilogy or anything like that. But I know he played he played quite a big part in the Arkham City game, actually, as well.
Yes, he did.
Good boss fight as well, from what I remember.
Good boss fight. It's very good boss fight.
So yeah, what's the next one on your list, man?
So at number 6 for me is Dr. Jonathan Crane, aka Scarecrow. Again, harkens back to when I first seen him in the animated series, and then he really took off for me when Killian. How do you pronounce his name?
Killian Murphy. I think it's Killian. Yeah.
I say Killian. Yeah, I've had this discussion so many times with people, with Killian Murphy, obviously in Batman Begins, and then obviously he was in throughout the trilogy.
Yeah.
at various points, you know. And I was so glad that the Scarecrow was getting recognition because, again, I could take my horror side, you know. And in Batman Begins, it's full on horror. I'm sorry, but it is when he visits Falcone in the jail cell.
Yeah,
you finally see the mask, you know, and the hallucinations that come with the gas and stuff. And I was so happy. I was so happy. I remember going to see Batman Begins. I was in secondary school, and my gran and granda took me to see it. And I remember there was young kids in there, and they were freaking out.
Yeah.
They were like, what? And I felt bad, but it was like, you couldn't have. Now, I suppose you could have mellowed that version of the Scarecrow and probably made it a little bit less scary. But for me, then you would have been defeating the purpose, because this guy is all about fear.
Yeah, his obsession is fear.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So I thought Chris Nolan done an absolutely tremendous job in that, because he got it. You know, he absolutely got the Scarecrow down to a T. And Cillian Murphy, you know, he understood.
Yeah.
You know, that this guy is just, again, he thinks he's doing it for the greater good. If you think about it, you know, he's a doctor, you know, and he's just kind of like, well, you know, this is the medicine that these people should take.
Yeah, I think for anyone that's a horror fan as well, he's a character that's certainly appreciated more by horror fans as well, because there's a definite horror aesthetic to it. And his obsession is fear. And there's few villains out there, if any, that prove to be more psychologically destructive than the Scarecrow. The episode, you know, in which he first appears, Nothing to Fear, and obviously Batman is exposed to the fear toxin, and then he's got the memories of his parents and that, you know. But if you've noticed as well, in the animated series, the Scarecrow is the character that went through the most animation overhauls. Yeah. They actually changed the look like 3 or 4 times during the course of that show.
They did.
He got darker and darker. Like with the new Batman Adventures, or the Batman and Robin Adventures, or whatever it was called, they completely changed the look of the Scarecrow, much darker. The Scarecrow, just to let you know, is actually 5th spot on my list.
Next one down.
Yeah,
nice.
So we were very close on that one. There was absolutely no way in a million years I was not going to have Scarecrow in the top 10. Again, getting back to the Arkham series, for me, one of the big highlights of Arkham Asylum were them Scarecrow moments.
Yeah.
When, their moments were just awesome. I remember the very first time you're exposed and you're walking down the corridor and the screen freezes and all this flickering. I nearly turned off the PlayStation. I thought the game had crashed. And I'm sure there was a lot of other people did. And then you actually realize it's part of the game. And there's that jump scare bit where he comes out of the frigging body bag. You see your dead parents and they're talking to you and that. And that's what I love. Again, I just love that whole psychological. Scarecrow isn't a fighter. He's not a fighter or anything like that. He just uses fear. He uses people. I mean, all right, here's a question for you. If you were exposed to his fear toxin, what do you think you would encounter?
Oh, giant killer gummy bears, probably.
What?
I'm kidding. I'm
going to pretend I didn't hear that.
Do you know what? That's a really difficult one. I would probably say it would be probably my fear of spiders. I would just probably imagine giant spiders coming with giant
that would be mine.
Yeah.
That would actually be mine. Spiders are my big fear. Always have been.
Same.
Some people would say hard work, but definitely spiders. But no, I agree. Cillian Murphy did a great job. And again, the Scarecrow is a villain I would like to see in this trilogy. I would like to see the Scarecrow back. Now, taking nothing away from Cillian Murphy, but I would like a different look. I kind of know in my head what I'd like the Scarecrow to kind of look like. But I think the problem is, as well, it's kind of, if you've noticed it, certain things don't translate to the big screen well. So a character in a comic looks great for a comic, but how is it going to look in a live action movie? And I think a great example of that is Harley Quinn. My favorite iteration of Harley Quinn is the classic 92 animated series, the Jester outfit.
Yeah, the Jester. Yeah.
Does it really look good? Would it really look good on the big? I know we get a glimpse in Suicide Squad. We get like a little scene, but does it translate to the screen well?
I know what you mean. Yeah.
It's the problem. Some things look better in animation and comic than they would on the big screen. So I'm just
life,
with the Scarecrow. I'm just wondering, like, what I kind of want in my head. Would it look too forced? Would it look like they're going too outright to be too scary?
Mm-hmm.
They've got off topic. Annabelle. You know the Annabelle films.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Would a normal human rational buy a doll that looks like that?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. No.
I mean, I'm not being funny. It
No.
looks. The problem is that they've kind of like forced the image of it looking as scary as they possibly can. And that's the issue I have. It's like they've gone all out and tried to make it look scary. Whereas Fats the Dummy in Magic, it's not a forced image. It just looks creepy.
No. Yeah.
You know, so yes, Scarecrow, great villain. So that was your choice, wasn't it? So
it was.
So my 9, 8, 7, 6. Okay, so my next one is Mr. Freeze.
Ooh, which was my number 4.
Yeah, Mr. Freeze, again, a truly sympathetic villain. As villains go, probably Batman's most sympathetic villain. He's a villain that a lot of people could fully understand and sympathize with. Heart of Ice, great episode.
Perfect.
Actually won an Emmy, didn't it, that episode? And
it did.
I think that's where the whole origin story for that character was actually born from. Because prior to that, I know Mr. Freeze was a villain that cropped up in the 60s, and you had Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah. What killed the
dinosaurs? The Ice Age.
I mean, basically, it's just one pun to the next, isn't it? 95% of his lines are just ice puns. But again, that's what they were going for. It's not like they were trying to go for anything serious at all. Completely and utterly terrible. But Mr. Freeze, I think what I like about Freeze is the whole, you can fully understand and comprehend with this guy as to why he's become a villain.
There was one moment, in Batman and Robin, and it was like literally so many seconds long. And it was like, if you had went this way, it would have been perfect. Which was, do you remember when he was watching the wedding video?
Oh,
and he has the tear.
Yeah.
That one, perfect.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was all that in that one moment, and it worked.
Are you sure? Are you sure he was actually crying because of that scene, and he wasn't just like filming the scene? Thought, do you know what? This film is crap. This film is crap.
Well,
do you know what? I bet he cried. Saying that, he got a nice pay packet, didn't he? So it's not like it.
He's probably crying, looking at his publicist, going, "You're getting this amount of money."
It hindered. It's not like it hindered his career or anything like that, is it? George Clooney actually said George Clooney was worried because he was actually convinced that Batman and Robin would destroy his career, because he wasn't really, even though he'd come from ER and he'd been in a few films prior to Batman and Robin, he wasn't the big Hollywood star that he is now. Mm-hmm. And he was really worried that film was going to completely destroy his career and that.
Hey, George, what would ever make you think that? Nah.
It's funny, really, because you've got Michael Keaton with like, I'm Batman, and Christian Bale, like, I'm Batman. And then George Clooney's like, I'm Batman. It's just like, it's literally George Clooney talking as George Clooney in the costume. Yeah. There is absolutely no attempt in masking the voice whatsoever. Much
like that guy from ER.
Yeah. Much like Adam West in 60s, you know, but that was the 60s though. So no, Mr. Freeze, again, I love the look. I think he's got a cool look. Love the suit, the freeze gun. Again, a couple of the Arkham games. Now, I know a lot of people regard the boss fight in Arkham City with Freeze as being probably the best boss fight of the entire franchise.
It's a good game. Yeah, it's good.
But it's a really good boss fight. I wasn't overly as keen because they changed the look, didn't they, of Freeze in the animated series. When it became the Batman and Robin adventures, they actually completely changed the look of Freeze.
They did.
The animation, I think you'll agree with me here, still a great show, but the animation wasn't as good, was it?
No.
The animation was not as good as the first 3 seasons. So obviously you got Freeze then. What would you like to do on Freeze?
Do you know what I'm just going to say it. I would love to have seen Patrick Stewart as Mr. Freeze, because that was the fan casting.
Oh yeah.
Did you ever see that? Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah. A lot of fans over the years since Arnie came out, and they wanted another cinematic Mr. Freeze to kind of put things right, and they all wanted Patrick Stewart, and I really like that casting. You know, what was I going to say?
Your picture's changed, by the way.
Oh, has it? Oh, hang on.
I've got a picture of you with this big Cheshire Cat grin with your Batman hoodie. There you go.
There we go.
What happened there?
I have no idea. Technology. Technology. Yeah. But yeah, I know that I did see a part of the version that they done in Gotham, Mr. Freeze. It was okay. It was all right. Probably still not what I would have wanted from the character, you know. But again, by this point, they were bringing every villain in from every corner, you know.
That's the problem I had with Gotham, right? One of the big issues I had, right? The casting for the most part was great. I thought David Mazouz made a great young Bruce Wayne. Jerome is a great
David was
Joker.
Great, yeah.
You know, Sean Pertwee, I thought was a really good Alfred and everything. It's the writing. The writing was all over the place. And this actually gets me back quickly. I meant to say this when we were on Harvey Dent.
Oh.
They introduced Harvey Dent a few episodes in, and they literally did nothing constructive with that character whatsoever. I was excited at knowing that Harvey Dent was in the show. He appeared in about 4 or 5 episodes. That was it. They were building up the likes of Riddler and Penguin, Cobblepot, and they were doing really good jobs with them. Harvey Dent was just a character that was just shoved to the sidelines.
Yeah.
Why?
It was a shame.
He may as well have not been in the show, because there was no constructive part that he actually played, and that was a real shame.
It was.
But that's when I kind of dropped off. It was kind of like they were throwing so many characters in without actually building up some of the characters that are already there.
Exactly.
You know. Exactly. But yeah, what I like about Freeze is that he isn't just a, you know, what do I put? Just a simple villain, a one-note villain. No. He's a man with a character born out of tragedy. You know, much like Bruce Wayne. And but yeah, so who's the next character on your list? Well, obviously Freeze, but who's the next one?
So the next one would have been the Riddler.
What position are you in now?
I'm on number 5.
Joking.
I'm in the 5th position.
Oh, okay. The 5th position. Okay, so
5th
Riddler.
position.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I'll have to say, you know, I did grow up with Jim Carrey's Riddler, I think, as many people did. And again, when I was young, I thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And now looking back, it's like, you know, what did my mum and dad give me as a kid to make me like these things?
Yeah.
But again, when it comes to Jim Carrey's Riddler, it's one that I respect because it's off its era.
Yeah.
You know, you have to respect it's, you know, it's off its time, you know. But again, I just, for the moment, because obviously we've got Paul Dano's Riddler to come.
Really looking forward to Paul Dano's a terrific actor. I've actually liked and loved him in every single film role I've seen him in. I think this is just such a good actor. This is potentially some great casting. So yeah. When they announced Paul as to play the Riddler, people were like, "Who?" You know, because he's not a household name. That's the thing. There might be a lot of people that might recognize him, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's not a household name. He's not an A-class celebrity or whatever. But you don't need that. As long as you've got someone that's talented, that's the most important thing.
Exactly, because I said to people, Paul Dano, like, who? And then I would say, do you remember the guy that was in Prisoners? The Danny Villeneuve film? And they're like, yeah, oh, he's a good actor. So you could tell people's reaction from that. You know, he was going to do a good job. But again, back to the animated series, you know, where I first encountered the Riddler, you know, it's where I encountered all these guys, you know. But I just love the fact that, you know, he's just a guy who sends riddles and Batman has to sit and work them out. You know, I just love that, you know, it's just, and some of the things, you know, again, there's so many iterations of the Riddler, but some of the times the riddles are actually really complex. You know, because you see a little cheesy version and you can guess the riddles. You're like, oh, I can get that. But then there's ones where I sit and I genuinely have to think, and the fact that then they use the riddles as a part of, a dangerous plot.
Yeah.
I love that where it's something you do have to think. He is a villain that really has to make Batman think. There has been occasions where obviously Batman always breaks the riddle, he gets it in the end. But I love when I can't remember, it was in an episode of something, but I can't remember. And the Riddler was so convinced that Batman would never get it. And he did. And Batman had this smirk in his face. Do you remember this?
That was the episode of the animated series, right?
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah. And he never thought he would get it. And he just had this.
Yeah. I believe that was called, because believe it or not, as iconic as the Riddler is, he only appeared in 3 episodes.
Yeah,
of the animated series, believe it or not. Which was
a real shame.
Yeah, because it was a perfect iteration of that character.
It was great.
It was, if you're, if you're so smart, why aren't you rich? Riddler's Reform.
Yeah.
I think that was the episode you're thinking of.
Riddler's Reform, yeah.
Riddler's Reform, which is actually my favourite of the 3.
It's a good episode.
Because he's apparently rehabilitated. And what was the other one? Oh, the other one was called It's in the Maze.
Yes.
It's called something reality. What is reality?
What is reality?
It's something like that.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah, the Riddler. Yeah, perfect iteration in that. I mean, getting back to Jim Carrey's Riddler. It was Jim Carrey being Jim Carrey.
Jim
Carrey was doing what he does best in that film. And because it was very much in the vein of 60s Batman, it was kind of like calling on Frank Gorshin. It was kind of like... But this is the issue I have, actually, is that there's a lot of people out there that see the Riddler as nothing more than a goofy, cheesy villain because of riddles and all this and that. But... And I partly blame, this is nothing to like with Jim Carrey, but I kind of blame because a lot of people, you mentioned Riddler, a lot of people think of Jim Carrey straight away. And I kind of blame that iteration for everyone thinking that the Riddler is like that and stuff. But he perfectly fit the tone of the film that he was in. But with the Riddler can be a very formidable villain. If you play the Arkham game, again, I think the Arkham franchise has done a great job with the character in terms of his depiction. I don't like the fact that there's too many I don't know if you play them, but there's way too many Riddler trophies to try and get.
There is, yeah.
I think there's 420 in Arkham City. It's so time consuming.
It is.
But the Riddler, it's like you said, the Riddler he challenges Batman intellectually.
Yeah,
this is a guy with an ego. He always likes to be the smartest guy in the room. But what he has going against him, as you know, is the compulsion to leave clues.
Yeah.
I think that the Riddler could potentially outsmart Batman, but there's that need, there's that compulsion to leave the clues. He has to let Batman know. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise he doesn't get the recognition. And he's a great character. He's actually, by the way, he's 4th place on my list.
Oh, okay.
Where is he on yours?
He was number 5th. He was number 5.
Yeah.
We're close.
Yeah, Paul Dano, well, I think it's safe to say we're going to get a more serious, darker iteration of the character in this movie.
Yeah. People will finally get the Riddler.
Yeah. The Riddler, what I kind of expect is the Riddler to engineer these, I don't mean like Jigsaw Killer-esque or anything like that, but to engineer these devices, these traps, whatever, clues. And I want it to become like this cat and mouse game between Batman and the Riddler.
Yeah.
This very cat and mouse game between the two. Again, like the Scarecrow, the Riddler's not a fighter. He's not a fighter. He's just one of these guys that, so was that mine or yours? Because I'm actually losing track now.
That was actually mine. So I was number 5,
Okay, so... Well, I'm up to my number 2 then, because obviously going through my top 5, we've already covered most of them.
Okay, well, I'm on my third one. And
Okay.
it's one that you have as well.
Okay, so we'll both say it. So I'm assuming you're talking about a certain female called Selena Kyle.
Nailed it. Yes.
Catwoman.
Miss Kyle.
Catwoman, what can I say? My favorite female in all of DC. I love the relationship, the very complex on and off relationship between her and Bruce. I love the fact that she's, well, being sexy certainly helps, but she's a criminal. She's a criminal, but she walks a very fine line between bad and good. She's like the forbidden fruit. Batman wants her, but at the same time, she's a criminal. She's the kind of person that he goes after. And it's that whole kind of like, I mean, for many, this is a villain list, I get it. And she's not really a villain per se anymore. She's more an anti-heroine. But she was a villain for many, many years, wasn't she? She started off as a villain, and you go back to the 60s, but even in the 60s, there was always that kind of chemistry, if you will, between her and Batman.
Yeah.
Was it 3 actresses played her in the 60s, wasn't it? Julie Newmar, Lee Merriweather, and Eartha Kitt.
Eartha Kitt, yeah.
But yeah, I love the fact that, that complex relationship between the two. I mean, who's your favorite iteration? Who's your?
Well, I like all of them because they're all different in their iterations of Catwoman. But for me, it's Michelle. By a long shot, Michelle Pfeiffer. Yeah. And I know people are going, I know why, but for me, Michelle Pfeiffer got the psychology of Selena Kyle. For me, anyway. She done it perfectly. And there's things in Batman.
Was that a pun there, or am I just picking up on
that? Was a pun. That was a pun.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah. But there was things even in Batman Returns where watching Tim Burton talk about when he was chatting to Michelle Pfeiffer and what she'd done on set, like 2 of the things that I thought that she had done just were like, really? Because I didn't think Michelle would have done this. Do you know when she becomes Catwoman when Max Shrek? The thing with the cats.
Oh yeah.
And her eyes. Yeah. That was Michelle Pfeiffer's own idea. The eyes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And she says, "Can I do this thing?" Tim's like, "Go for it." And she done it. And he said, "That's perfect."
Didn't she learn how to use the whip as well? Didn't she?
There's the whip as well. Yeah.
I love that scene. Actually, I actually love that scene where she's knocking all the heads off the mannequins.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, that was her, wasn't it?
That was her.
Did she actually train to do that?
Yeah, she trained to do that, and she done them all perfectly. Yep.
Yeah. She I know that the suit that she wore had to be vacuum sealed on.
Yeah.
And she could only wear it for short periods of time, because I can imagine that was like almost suffocating to wear that suit. I absolutely love the moment. In fact, it might possibly be my favorite single shot from the film. I love when she becomes Catwoman and she's in the apartment with the neon lights.
Hell here. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love that shot. No, I agree. She's my favorite Catwoman as well.
Yeah.
But it has to be said that Adrienne Barbeau was a fantastic voice actor.
She was.
In the animated series.
She was.
I love it when she shows up in... what's the episode called? Almost Got Him. One of my favorites. And she shows up at the end, and then she's on the rooftop with Batman.
Yeah.
I mean, Halle Berry, we're not going to talk about that one, the 2004 film. What's your expectations? I know we've talked about this before on another episode, but what's your expectations for Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman?
I'm excited. I recently read that they interviewed Zoe, and they asked her about Catwoman, and Zoe said, "Listen, I am trying to make her less of a male object. So I'm not, I'm trying not to be the glamorous Miss Kyle. She wants to be more, this is my suit. I'm not attractive, but I'm intelligent. So come watch."
No, I get that. But do you know what, right? Do you know what? I kind of felt as though Anne Hathaway's Catwoman was a more kind of sophisticated Catwoman. To me, she wasn't overtly sexual. Don't get me wrong. I think when any woman is wearing latex and skin tight and that. However hard you try to not be sexual, there are guys going to be looking at that and thinking that's quite sexual.
Mm-hmm.
Even Anne Hathaway's Catwoman, she's more. Let's face it. In comparison, Michelle Pfeiffer and Anne Hathaway, Michelle Pfeiffer's is way more overtly sexual.
Yeah,
she's very kind of whorish almost in comparison. Anne Hathaway's is more sophisticated, but if you're a red-blooded male who found, it's hard not to look at. I mean, I don't know what Zoe Kravitz is going to look like, what her costume is going to look like, or anything. But she's not. I'll admit, she's not an actress I'm overly familiar with. But I've heard she's a solid actress. I've heard she's really good.
I've heard she's really good. Yeah.
And they've had early screenings and that. Some people have seen the film, and some people are already saying that she's their favorite Catwoman, that she's the best Catwoman we've had. But we'll see.
Old words.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I'm just hoping there's going to be, because Patterson's a solid actor and that, I'm just hoping that they've got chemistry between them.
Yeah, I would say they will. Yeah, I would say they will. Yeah, because I've seen Robert. Somebody mentioned Batman to him recently, and he said about DC fandom, and he goes, "Yes, we have." And he says, "Now, obviously," he says, "I know they're putting a new trailer out and stuff," but he says, "Me and Zoe have done a couple of little surprises."
Okay.
For DC fandom, but the way he said it, me and Zoe, you can tell they're, they do have that friendship, that chemistry.
Okay.
So I do think it will work. I do really think it will work well.
Okay. Well, as I say, I think this film has a lot of the right ingredients. I think there's a lot of components in this film that make it to have the potential to be something pretty damn good. You've got a very good director in Matt Reeves, who, from what I can tell, seems to be really enthusiastic about this movie. You've got a great cast. Assuming Matt Reeves is given full creative control and Warner Brothers aren't going to end up butchering the film or whatever, which I don't think they are, because he's worked with them before. He worked with them on the Apes, 2 of the 3 Apes films, didn't he? And they were 2 great films. But yeah, I think Catwoman, I like the fact that, yes, she's... the thing is, she's sexy, but she's also badass.
Exactly.
Catwoman can kick ass. She can fight. She can actually fight and fend for herself against, many. So hang on. So we're on the second spot for you now, right?
We're on the second spot for me, yes.
Okay. Who's that?
Mr. Penguin.
Mr. Cobblepot. Okay.
Mr. Cobblepot.
Yeah.
Well, for me now, this one's very split, because I did see him again the first time in the animated series, but for me it was Danny DeVito.
Okay.
That's the Penguin to me anyway. Growing up, I love Burgess Meredith. Don't get me wrong. I think Burgess was great, but Danny just took it to another level. You know what I mean? It was just like, I know friends of mine who seen Batman Returns when it came out, and they were like, that was not the Penguin in my mind. They had Burgess, they had this little guy, rotund with a cigarette, and when they seen Batman Returns, they were like, what in the absolute God is that? But, you have to appreciate him taking it till in a slightly different direction. He did try to make him, all right, he's, what he does with the kids in Batman Returns, or wants to do with the kids, unacceptable, okay?
Yeah.
But there is a sympathetic side to him. And again, there's a moment in Batman Returns where I think it's perfect, which is when he goes to visit his mum's grave and his dad's grave.
Oh, yeah.
And he does the thing, and the music complements brilliantly and stuff. And, there is iterations where, they do try to make the Penguin very sympathetic. Because obviously, again, to go back to what we said, he's kind of a freak of nature.
Yeah.
It's not his fault, but, he's been deemed a freak, and, it's heartbreaking. Obviously, he goes down that wrong way of things and stuff. But for me, it was always Danny DeVito's one, because he was scary in places. He was funny. you know, obviously now it's jet black humor, you know, when you grow up and stuff. But
yeah,
even towards the end, I love when the penguins come out and they put him into the water. And he was like,
yeah,
people think, oh, come on, but I think it's great. I genuinely think that's a perfect end to his.
Yeah,
I
think Danny DeVito was absolutely great in that role.
He was,
but I can fully understand why some people are like, hang on a sec, this ain't the Penguin. This is like, because people were accustomed to Burgess Meredith's 60s Penguin in that. I actually think the animated series Batman, I thought that was like, I actually loved the iteration in the animated series.
Yeah,
because he's a very debonair, well-spoken English gentleman, isn't he?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's funny, really, because there have been so many iterations. In fact, there's probably very few villains that have had more different iterations than him, because, all right, you go from him, the English well-spoken gentleman in the animated series, and then you go to the Cockney-speaking brute in the Arkham series.
Yeah.
Where he speaks Cockney, and he's a really repulsive, horrible guy in that. Yeah. You know, and then, again, kind of a gentleman in the 60s and whatever. I think what I do like about Penguin was an honourable mention for me, by the way, just outside of the top 10, without a doubt, one of the most iconic. But with the Penguin, what he kind of lacks in stature, he likes to make up for, doesn't he, with a big umbrella and the top hat? It's a Napoleon complex,
exactly,
if you will.
Exactly.
And when Colin Farrell was cast, because obviously Colin Farrell is playing Oswald Cobblepot in the Batman.
Yes.
I looked at that casting and I'm like, I've got no problem with Colin Farrell, but I was thinking to myself,
that doesn't jail.
What? Like, Oswald Cobblepot's 4'10", Colin Farrell's 5'10", like a whole foot. I'm not saying. I mean, that's cosmetic. I mean, look, at the end of the day, Wolverine was 5'3", and they got Hugh Jackman at 6'2", nearly a foot taller, but it worked.
It did.
But I didn't even recognize him at first. I remember seeing that trailer. And I'm like, where's Colin Farrell in this? I could not believe that was Colin Farrell.
Yeah.
I mean, that's prosthetic, isn't it? That's prosthetics. Yeah, that's some damn good prosthetics there. I know, from what I understand as well, he's only got a handful of scenes in this film. So he's kind of Cobblepot to becoming the Penguin, sorry. But also, Danny DeVito was like the perfect height, actually. Pure coincidence, whatever. But Cobblepot is 4'10". Danny DeVito's 4'10".
Yeah.
Exact same height as the character he's playing on screen. Now, here's a quick bit of trivia. I'm sure you know this. Can you remember who played his father in Batman Returns?
Paul Rubens.
And did you know that Paul Rubens played Oswald's father in Gotham as well?
I did indeed, yes.
He's played the Penguin's father twice now. But no, the Penguin is, I mean, he's a mob boss, isn't he? A lot of illegal operations and...
Yeah, I have to throw this at you. Do you know who originally was they wanted to play the Penguin's father in Batman Returns?
In Batman Returns? Who wanted to play? Give me a clue.
They wanted to play.
Give me a clue.
He had already played the Penguin.
Burgess Meredith, then?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, but he was too ill by that point and I couldn't get him. So
I was gonna say Batman Returns was like 92, and he must have been really getting on at that point.
Yeah,
Burgess Meredith. Yeah, because I mean, but the Batman film was 66, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When he, all right, no, because he was a little guy as well. I mean, I say he's little. He's still like over half a foot taller than Danny DeVito. Anyway, I think Burgess Meredith was 5'5", about 5'4", 5'5", around that. But Penguin, great villain. Again, the Iceberg Lounge has become synonymous with him. That's where he runs a lot of his illegal operations and that, innit? And we're up to the top spot now. I wonder who it could be.
I know, I really do. Nobody's going to get this.
I mean, I'm sure the suspense is killing people. Okay, my number one Batman villain, brace yourself for this, is Dollmaker.
Well, that's
I'm joking.
Against the wall.
It's this guy, the Joker. I mean, the Joker. He's basically, not only is the Joker kind of the crown jewel of Batman villains, he's without a doubt one of the most iconic villains in the history of pop culture. You know, I don't think it really matters how old you are, what country you're from. I think most people would probably recognize the Joker.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
You know, what can we say that hasn't been said? He's unpredictable, an agent of chaos. He's kind of the him and Batman are yin and yang. It's like they can't exist without the other.
Yeah.
He's incomplete. The Joker would be incomplete. He'd become bored without Batman.
Exactly.
And even Batman has actually said in kind of a weird way, the Joker has kind of become his best friend in the most weird, you know what I mean? In the most twisted of ways. Yeah. I mean, iterations wise. I mean, where do you start? You got obviously, I mean, all right then, here's the question. And I've been asked this a lot and I've never got an answer for it because I can't choose. Who's your favorite live action Joker?
Oh, dark question. Oh, you see, this is genuinely a hard one for me too. Because pre-2008, it would have been Jack.
Okay.
Yeah. Then 2008, and this little movie that nobody's seen called The Dark Knight came out.
Yeah.
And he came on and done his performance, and that was it. It was like, you're not going to get better than this. No way.
He's your favorite then? He's
probably my favorite, yeah.
Okay.
Because I just thought that he got the Joker perfect.
Yeah.
He just got that dark, twisted, psychological persona to a T.
Yeah.
And he was still humorous. So he was still but very, very dark humor. You know, Jack Black. Yeah.
I find it like really hard to choose. Really hard.
It's hard. It is
because
hard.
Jack Nicholson was great for the film he was in, but you know, Heath Ledger's Joker is a completely different iteration in a completely different kind of Batman movie. You know, Jack Nicholson's was more kind of an ode to the old school Joker. You know, the 60s and that, if you will. It's kind of camp, it's kind of cheesy and that, but
Cesar Romero.
He just Cesar Romero. Yeah. He just relishes every moment. And I think both of them, Heath and him, steal practically every scene they're in.
Oh yeah, hands down. Yeah.
Heath Ledger's Joker is great. He's a version that we'd never seen on the big screen before. Quite a bold, daring move to make.
Yeah.
Considering it was, you know, a very different iteration. And then Joaquin Phoenix, who just carries that film. He carries the entire movie. A fantastic performance. We've had two actors that have won Oscars for comic book movies and both won the Oscar for playing the Joker.
Yeah.
You know, Joaquin Phoenix, I feel like if not for the performance, that is a film that could have potentially kind of fell flat because it's just kind of a character study. It's a really absorbing character study. I struggle to pick between Joaquin and Heath.
Yeah, it's hard. It is.
I find it really difficult because, I just thought Joaquin Phoenix just gave such a great performance. And at the end, and I think you'll agree with me here, what makes the Joker such an interesting character, actually, unlike most other villains, we don't know where he comes from. We don't actually know hardly anything about him because we get that story in The Killing Joke that, you know, he turned to a life of crime to support his pregnant wife, blah, blah, and all that. But even then, he says when he's asked about his history, he prefers it to be multiple choice.
Yeah.
Heavily implying that what he's told us may actually be fabricated.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how I took the ending as Joker.
Yeah.
Did he tell this whole story for us to sympathize with him and actually feel sorry for him? He's a very unreliable narrator. And that's what I really took away from that movie. The only version I don't like is Jared Leto. I'm sorry.
Who would have guessed?
I know there are people that do. I don't like Jared Leto's Joker. I really wanted to, but I couldn't get past the image. Same. The image just felt too forced with the tattoos and the grills and all that. Yeah, it felt like it felt like he was really trying his hardest, but that's the problem. Nothing felt naturalistic. It just felt like he was trying to kind of outdo Heath Ledger in some shape, way, or form. And that was the problem. I think Leto's a good actor. I do. He's a really good actor. But unfortunately, I don't think that role, I just don't think that iteration of the character full stop worked for me at all.
No.
What's your thoughts on... Right, you got Mark Hamill, who's like you could say the definitive Joker.
The definitive.
What about Troy Baker?
I like Troy. I like Troy's version of the Joker.
I was going to say.
Oh, good.
No, I was going to say. I think, and probably people disagree with me, but when Troy Baker talks as the Joker, sometimes I sometimes think it's Hamill. I think sometimes he does sound like Hamill. I don't think there's a massive, huge difference between Hamill's like the definitive, but I think Troy Baker's a really good voice actor for Joker.
He is. I actually was going to say that, and then here's me. These guys will probably think I'm off my trolley, but they do sound very similar. Yeah.
I think he's like the next best thing. I think that, Troy, but obviously he voiced him in Arkham Origins, and he voiced him in what was it that we watched? Long Halloween, Part 1 and Part 2.
Halloween.
Again, there was it just felt like I was listening to Mark Hamill on occasion. And he also voiced him in, I believe, he was the first actor to ever do this, voiced Batman and Joker in the same thing. He voiced Batman and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He voiced Batman and Joker. What about Joe DiMaggio?
He's okay. They're all very distinct in their own thing. I tell you who I really like. Joe was okay. I actually thought Peter Weller was quite good in Dark Knight Returns.
Peter Weller?
Peter Weller.
Oh, it was Batman.
Yeah. It's Batman,
Oh, yeah. Weller was great.
Yeah. He just had that gruffness.
Yeah, I agree. I still think I'm going to probably say that The Dark Knight Returns Part 1 and Part 2 is my favorite DC animated film.
Yeah, same.
I think it
so
is.
Good.
Mask of the Phantasm is right up there in the top 5.
Perfect.
If we're just including Batman only, then Under the Red Hood would be up there, top 5 as well. Under the Red Hood's really good.
It's very good.
But I mean, the Joker's been around like same year as Catwoman. The Joker and Catwoman have been around since 1940.
Yeah,
these characters have endured that length of time. It's crazy.
It is.
Like, these characters are like so iconic, and there's just absolutely no signs of these characters stop. Now, this is the thing I will say about the Joker, though. As much as I love the character, I do sometimes feel that the Joker does steal the limelight from other villains.
Yeah, easily. Yeah.
So, take for example Arkham Origins, where it turns out that the Joker is actually that the Black Mask is actually the Joker in a big twist. And then in Arkham Knight, even though the Joker's dead, they have the Joker crop up throughout the entire game.
Yeah.
Courtesy of the fear toxin throughout the entire game. It's like they know Hamill, they want Hamill back on board. There's no way they could do an Arkham game without having the Joker in it. But he actually plays a big part. He's not just like, do you sometimes feel that way? Do you sometimes feel like some of the other villains are kind of overshadowed a little bit?
Yeah, and I'll tell you the perfect example, because when Matt's Batman movie got announced and they said that they were going to have the Riddler and the Penguin, I was so relieved. And I loved, we've just picked Joker as number 1, our favorite villain, but it's got to the point where it's like they need to give the other guys, the other villains, some breathing space. It's like, they do exist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, and you know what? Obviously, Matt knows this, and that's why he's chose different villains, but I'm sure somebody at Warner's said, guys, listen, we can't we've milked it enough as we can. If we keep doing it, people are going to go, not another Joker thing. Because there is supposed to be a Joker 2 in development.
Well, that's the thing. I've been taking that with a pinch of salt. There's been a lot of rumors. There's been a lot of rumors floating around for the last year or so that there is going to be a Joker 2. And I'll say this, right? I'm completely against it.
Yeah.
I don't want a Joker 2. As much as I loved Joaquin Phoenix in that role, okay, and there's a little part of me that would love to see him back. At the same time, I'm thinking, do you know what? One of the reasons I love Joker, it's a standalone film. It stands on its own 2 feet. It's not handcuffed to anything else.
Exactly.
And I feel like if you do a follow-up to that, you are going to lessen the impact of that original film's ending.
Exactly.
You are. You're going to ruin it. Yeah, and
exactly.
I'm really hoping it won't happen.
No. Plus, when people ask me about it, it's like, listen, that was a standalone experiment and it worked. Go do other DC villains. Yeah. Give them a standalone R-rated movie. It'll work. It will work if you do it well.
I mean, I get it. Look, the film made over $1 billion. The highest grossing R-rated film of the time. That's the problem. Wherever there's cash to be made, as soon as something makes cash, they think, do you know what?
Yeah.
Maybe we can get a sequel. That's the problem. Sequelitis, as they call it. And I just don't think, there shouldn't be a sequel in my eyes.
No.
And I'm really hoping it doesn't happen. Regarding Joker in the trilogy and stuff, assuming this does become a trilogy, I would expect they're going to throw the Joker in by the 3rd movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I find it nearly impossible to imagine a Batman trilogy without having the Joker in it into some capacity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Or they could just do kind of a tease at the end of the trilogy, kind of like a nod to the Joker or something. But I just think the Joker is such a commercial selling point.
Yeah.
I feel like they wouldn't take the risk with certain other villains. I mean, what other villains the villains you've had already, the villains that we're getting, we've already seen before, just different versions. We've got Cobblepot, we've had Cobblepot, we've had Catwoman, we've had Riddler. Who do you feel would make a good villain for this trilogy that we haven't seen?
Ooh.
So no Two-Face, no Scarecrow.
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm just
it is, isn't it? It is quite a tough question, actually. Thinking about it, because you've even had Poison Ivy. You even had Poison Ivy. So, you can't even say Black Mask now because he was in the Birds of Prey film.
Yeah, exactly. You see, there is a couple that I could mention, but again, as we said in this, earlier on, it's just people, nobody really know them commercially, unless you're a fan,
What do you mean, like Ventriloquist and that?
Yeah, I was actually going to say Man-Bat, because people our age, growing up in the animated series, will go, oh yeah, I remember him. Or if you are a fan anyway, you'll go, oh, Man-Bat, now that's kind of cool. But general movie audiences will be like, no idea. Will be clueless, and Warner's are saying, we're not putting this money into this because it may work and it may not work, but they maybe don't want to take the gamble, which is sad because they really should. Yeah.
All right, here's a quick one for you, because we are going to wrap this up in a minute, because I think we've been going for about 6 hours, haven't we? How long has it been? I can't actually see. So here's a question for you. I'm going to give you one question. Who is a DC character, villain or hero, that's not had their own film that you'd like to see? I want to say own film, so I'm talking live action only. So who is a villain or hero? Who is a character that you would like to see have their own movie?
Do you know what? After just us chatting about stuff, and he was in your list and I forgot all about him, and I really wish I could have remembered him, but he doesn't. It would be Clayface. I think that would be so good.
Have their own movie?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Because you could make it as dark and as horrific, if that's even the word. You could bring so much horror elements into it, but still keep it in that comic book kind of world, you know, kind of like what they're going to do. Hopefully it's good because it's Sony with Morbius, you know.
Yeah.
You know,
Jared Leto,
yeah,
isn't it? Jared Leto again.
Jared
isn't it?
Leto.
Morbius, yeah. I tell you who mine is. I know mine right off the bat. And well, the annoying thing is, this character was going to get their own film. This character's film got cancelled. The script was written and everything. Deathstroke.
Oh, Deathstroke. Yeah, that would be cool to see. Yeah,
an origin story to Deathstroke. Just imagine the potential. It was going to be directed by, I believe his name, is it Gareth Evans or is it Duncan Jones or something? It was the guy that directed The Raid and The Raid 2.
Gareth Evans.
Yeah,
it was Gareth Evans. Yeah, I think it was Gareth Evans. Yeah,
he was going to direct the Deathstroke film. The movie had been mapped out. They'd actually wrote a script and everything. And Joe Magalino, however you pronounce his name, was going to play Deathstroke in this movie. He was really embittered, actually, because he was really looking forward to taking on this role. And it only got to the script stage, never went into actual production. That.
I would throw money at that.
Yeah,
I would throw money at that. Yeah.
Some of the action sequences. I mean, this is the guy that did The Raid, which is a great action movie.
It's amazing.
The choreography is just fantastic. That's the one for me. That is the movie, and we were etching towards it, and it just didn't happen. But yeah,
I would just want something. I would just want something different, like Clayface, because I love body horror stuff. So I just love to shock people.
Clayface film. We'll have to get Stuart Gordon on board. Stuart Gordon or Brian
David Cronenberg.
Or David Cronenberg.
David, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it, man. I'm not quite sure how long we've been doing this for. Have I got a fucking beard yet? I feel like
I know.
But yeah, cheers for coming on, man. Our list was quite similar. Apart from the bottom pile was very different, but the kind of top part to middle was really quite similar.
We were very similar. Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm glad that you obviously mentioned some villains that I didn't mention in that. So
vice versa. Yeah.
But that's it. That's it for today. So thanks a lot to everyone that watched, and we'll be back again soon. And I'm not quite sure the next one we're going to do. We're probably going to do something horror orientated next for
probably.
Talk. We could probably do something regarding. We could probably talk about the Halloween Kills trailer. Because I definitely
and your love for trailers.
I haven't seen enough of that film yet. I just haven't seen enough. I mean, I'm actually surprised they haven't shown Karen getting killed yet. They haven't actually showed that moment. So, but yeah, we'll probably do a Halloween Kills or so, and something we will do in the very, very near future, because I do firmly believe we'll be getting a trailer within the next few weeks, and that is Scream, the fifth Scream movie. Because I don't know if you've been hearing the rumors. Well, it's not actually a rumor, but Scream is being re-released for one night only. Now, the question is that in the UK as well as the US?
I think it's the UK because there's tickets at my local cinema for it.
Really?
Yep.
Because there aren't any tickets online that I found.
Okay. What cinemas are near you?
Well, the nearest is the Showcase, and then there's the View Cinema, which is Cambridge, which isn't a million miles away.
Okay. I'll have a check for you, see what I can do.
Yeah, because, well, as you know, they've actually announced that the first glimpse of the fifth Scream film is going to be attached to the re-release of this movie.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about it. We'll talk about the fifth Scream trailer when that comes out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's it for today. So thanks a lot to everyone that watched, and we'll be back again soon. Take care.
See you guys.